Hi, this is John Saltas with Ron Yengich, sitting in the Bill Frost Studios for another episode of the Bingham Boys podcast. Ron and I went our separate ways the past week. Haven't seen you for a week. A lot has happened.
Yep.
We know a little bit more about magnets and water and Malaysia and how to do funky dances and for no reason whatsoever, getting lost in hallways in Japan. Other than that, it's been a normal week of the United States presidency, has it not, Ron?
Yeah, normal in the sense that there is a lot of commentary on tweets and stuff he's done, like his dance moves are...
They're John Travolta-esque.
Well, no.
No?
No, they're not. There's even that...
Gene Kelly.
No, they're Brian Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
They're Brian Kelly-esque. It's just... sometimes you're left speechless simply because of the inanities that we deal with during this presidency. Do you remember a time when every day didn't start, once you looked at the news, with something else that has been done or said or about the president or something else that he was trying that people were opposed to or promoting, where we looked at actual substantive issues that were happening and how it was going? How is the economy really doing? How's the World Series going? Stuff like that. We don't. Everything starts and ends with this guy because he's got to be the center of attention. And the fact of the matter is, and we're as guilty as anybody, he becomes the center of attention for two reasons. One, it's a train wreck, and we'll always turn our eyes to that. And two, we're concerned about where he's taking us on a rudderless, seemingly, ship of state that he's just weaving wherever he wants to go.
Well, he dominates the news cycle, but presidents do. The difference is he dominates pockets of the news cycle that presidents didn't normally do. So, why would he try to explain to the United States Navy what water is? I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. Nautical is the Greek word for Navy, but nautilus. So what's going on there? It doesn't understand what magnets and magnetism is and how they work aboard the aircraft carriers. He talks about stuff he doesn't know. Lately, it's the war on Tylenol, which I presume now is going to be the 9th war that he solves because he got 8 so far. But once we solve this war on Tylenol, he told, did you read his tweet? Or
no.
Don't take, I can read it to you. Kind of going a little ways side maybe, but let me read this because it's
so is he going to solve the war on Tylenol with ibuprofen?
It just says that. Well, who knows? But here's his tweet. It says, "Pregnant women, don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots, not mixed. Take chicken pea shot separately. Take hepatitis," he spelled it wrong, hepatitis spelled wrong, "shot at 12 years old or older, and importantly, take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits." President DJT. And it's like, well, what is he commenting about a privately or corporate, United States corporation in a way that could harm them financially for starters? But what the heck? I didn't get this kind of advice from any other president ever. No. So it's not just that. And you're right, Ron. Last night was an epic, perhaps one of the best games ever in World Series history. It's up there, right?
Oh,
that should be headline news, not, how does a magnet work on an aircraft carrier from a guy that doesn't understand magnetism? We put a lot of faith in this guy, right?
Well, a lot of people do. The troubling thing again for me is just that it's got to be churned. It's like he has to make Trump butter every morning or late at night so that he will be the person up front. He's got to do things to bring attention to himself. And I've gotten older, the people that call attention to themselves, speaking of baseball, the Hernandez kid, the outfielder, Teoscar Hernandez, good ball player for the Dodgers. He has lapses in the field. He hits a home run and he does a bat flip. And I know that that's acceptable now. I understand that. But if I was a pitcher and I pitched in the Beehive State League, if you showed me up like that,
Chin raiser, right? What do they call it?
no, I never chin music. I didn't ever throw at anybody's head, but I'll tell you what, I would have to think about hitting in between the numbers, because you know what? That wasn't part of the game. I know it's let the kids play, but that's bringing attention to yourself, not your team, and it's putting the other guy down. And then you see he gets thrown out at third base, cardinal rule in baseball. Game is tied, or you're 1 run behind. You don't get thrown out at third base. It happened twice last night because it happened with the other team too. But you go, you're just not watching. And if you say, well, I didn't expect him to make that play. These are big leaguers. You make that expectation. My point about it is this is a guy that likes to call attention to himself, and he got his comeuppance because he got called out at third, and I was happy, okay? Not that I dislike the kid and his talents. It's just that you can't only play me on the scale of life. Donald Trump does that.
Well,
and I've never liked that. And the older I get, the more I like it less.
It shouldn't be acceptable to be that way. There's a speaking, last week we got a little meme thing going. There's one that's out now, and there's Donald Trump holding the letters M-E. You can't spell America without me. Right? So it's like, the guy just he just needs it. It's narcissistic. It's clinically narcissistic. But he did well on a cognitive test. Thought it was an IQ test. Made the bad mistake of challenging 2 of the smartest women in Congress. But of course, he would never challenge a man, and he of course always challenges women of color. Isn't this interesting?
Yeah.
Anybody that any longer thinks that Donald Trump doesn't have some measure of racism vestiges left in him, they're sadly mistaken. The guy is a racist.
It's who he's been from the beginning. It's who his dad
father
was.
taught him.
And sadly, people don't want to accept that. I mean, I can accept someone that maybe have been brought up with those kind of attitudes when they were young and changed. I give them credit for being able to put that behind them. There are a lot of people that have done that in our country. He brings out the darkness of who we are as a people, and it's there. I actually think it's in the human DNA that the other person, the person that looks different, we've got to be afraid of them. We've overcome that as a civilization. European Western civilization has made an effort to do that. A lot of them civilizations still are not doing that. We've made mistakes. We deserve to be called out on them. But this guy, the dog whistles and the other things that he blows and has blown his whole life, and actually horns blowing that indicate that he is overtly racist, are there. It's hard for me personally to look at him and not see that.
Well,
or hear it.
I see it, and I can't look past it. It's among us. Racism is, and biases are. To continue to condone it because we were past it. Let me just read one thing, and I want to move on to something else. But let me just.
All right.
This is. I don't know if you know who Joe Walsh is. Do you know who he is? He was a former congressman.
Oh, I was thinking of the guitarist.
No, he doesn't have anything to do with Hotel California. But he was from the Midwest somewhere. He was one of the early proponents and co-founders of what preceded MAGA, the
Tea Party?
Tea Party movement. He was there with those first inductees into the Congress. He's a true believer, but he fell away. He's been a very harsh critic of Donald Trump for the past several years and has now renounced the Republican Party and joined the Democratic Party. That's his background. So he's interestingly writing about this every day. But here's what he posted yesterday about your thoughts there. He says, the past 10 years haven't been complicated. Regular Americans, working class, middle class voters who don't live online have had to choose between a corrupt and lawless demagogue asshole they thought sort of understood their concerns, and a weak but well-intentioned political party out of touch with and utterly dismissive of their concerns. And more often than not, these voters chose the asshole. That's from him and his party that was, MTG kind of person when they came up with, Tea Party stuff. But that's where we are. And the world knows this. Everybody else seems to know this, except 30% of Americans who are tethered to the guy in his every ankle move. And, be that as it may. Do you think he's a fascist?
Do I think he's a fascist?
Not a Nazi. Don't get me wrong. Some people get very offended when you say, "Oh, Hitler." Don't compare him.
I mean, you should get offended.
Authoritarian fascism.
I think that his model is, I mean, in a way, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, is Benito Mussolini, who was the first fascist. Fascism, the word comes from the bundle of rods that was carried around by the consuls or the people that protected the consuls that were the political leaders in Rome. And these fasces were rods. They were either steel rods or they were hard wooden rods. And they were carried around, and they were carried around for a purpose. And that is when you attempted to confront the consul or the other people or anything bad started, they used them on it, on the people that were in opposition to them. And Benito Mussolini adopted that as who he wanted to be because it showed a strong man principle. Mussolini was a journalist himself, and Mussolini knew that people will believe what they're told if they're told over and over and over again. Same thing Heinrich Himmler believed as the publicist for Nazism in Germany. Fascism preceded the Nazi movement. Hitler was Mussolini's boy before Mussolini became Hitler's boy. A lot of people don't know that. But the whole thing with Mussolini was to attempt to go back in Roman history and replicate things that happened. And then after that, Garibaldi's march from southern Italy up through and taking the Papal States.
Make Rome great again.
And in a sense, in a very true sense, Mussolini was the guy that said he'd make the trains run on time because nobody else could ever do it. Just like Donald Trump, he never really made that happen, but he told everybody he did. He wanted to have Italy be like Rome at that time. He wanted to colonize people, so he attacked a weak country, Ethiopia, who fought him tooth and nail, and ultimately Italy won, but at a really high cost. And he also attacked other places, which is really relevant today, right?
It's absolutely, because today is October 28th. There are like 5 major holidays in Greece, and 3 of them are religious, Easter and Christmas, and August 15th, celebration of the Virgin Mary. Then there's Greek Independence Day, and then there's today. And all over Greece, it is being sung. The national anthem, which I told you a couple weeks ago, last week, freedom or death.
Yeah.
That's what it translates to. But today, Greeks are running around saying "ochi," and they're saying "zito ielada." Okay, so there's your Greek words for this week. "Ochi" means no.
Okay.
"Zito ielada" means long live Greece. So the reason that the word "ochi" is celebrated today, and all of Greece is, I'm telling you, it's shut down singing. This day in 1940, Mussolini sent his emissaries to Greece and said, hey, at 3 a.m, they went up to the prime minister of Greece, his name was Metaxas, knock on the door, said, hey, we're in Albania and we're going to come across the mountains into Epirus today, and we're just giving you a heads up, basically, surrender. And Metaxas said, ochi. And in French, he said, well, this means war. I don't know how you say that in French. Alors, something de guerre or whatever. And that was the start of it. Well, the Italian emissary left, actually attacked Greece at 5:30 a.m., caught them off guard instead of 6 a.m. when they were going to or threatening to. And that begat the downfall of Mussolini's entry into into Greece, because the Greeks stopped him. And that was the beginning of the change of things in Ethiopia. It was there as a battle, but one that turned the tide, actually, because it wasn't conquered, was Greece.
Right.
And so that was the one that in 1940 began to turn the tide against fascism and the onslaught of the advances of both Mussolini and Hitler. It culminated a year later, not quite a year, about 5-6 months later, was the Battle of Crete. Italy still couldn't make it work, and Germany needed Crete for its strategic reasons and so on, because they were doing Operation Barbarossa. They sent like 3 million Germans to the Russian front, and how many millions didn't come home?
Right.
changed the course of that war, of that battlefield, changed the course of the war. But it began with ochide, the word no.
Yeah.
That's today. And it's an incredibly humbling thing to know all the minor, they were minor at the time seemingly, sacrifices that individual Greeks made passionately in defense of their country. And it's just symbolic that, Greece just sit there in the middle, but it never gives up.
Well, I think and there are a lot of people like that. I mean, the Greeks stopped the Italians and really began the rollback of what Mussolini was attempting to do. And it also opened up the idea that Italians that didn't like Mussolini could start opposing him openly. And one of the fascinating things about all of that in history is that when people use words like fascism or Nazism or other words like, you want to be a king, you want to be an emperor, there are plenty of examples of that and how the people themselves resisted that throughout history. There are lots of them, and they're in every country, in every section of the world. What's fascinating to me as an amateur historian, I got my degree in history, and I love to read history, is that there's always dissent, and the claims that are made by these people are always the claims. And they're generally people who have a lot themselves, and they're going to make everybody better. But when you look behind it, they're stealing everything they can for themselves and their own people. And they are overtly lying about their own, who they are as people and what they really want to do. And quite often captured in open mics now or video now, telling other people who they really are. But what's also fascinating is that the people that they've convinced that they're for them find it hard to believe that. And, you can call it fake news now or whatever you want, but there's always a propaganda apparatus with these people that are willing to oppose it. And I've often, when I taught at the U, and we would talk about this kind of aspect of the growth of civil rights, I would remind my students that propaganda is really what? It's throwing shit, and that's literally what it is, because it's fertilizing the ground. That's what the Latin word means. And so you got to look so often if you want to be objective, and from your own side too. When they're saying stuff that you just don't buy, you go, is this truth, or are they just fertilizing their lies? Donald Trump and his people have taken that to a real high level. And sadly, it's grown and grown. But when you throw too much shit, you can also kill the crops. And I think that's what's beginning to happen with him now.
Well, what happened in Italy right after that, Greece, the Italians were pocketed up in the north, the Epiroussi region of Greece, and islands of the Ionian Sea that were between Italy and Greece, one of them Kefalonia, upon which, in Germans got so pissed off, Germany, that there were 9,000 Italians that died there. Yeah. 3,000 in battle approximately. No, 1,000 something in battle. 3,000 going back to Italy, but they were sunk, the ship, and 5,000 of their friends, their teammates 1 year prior, murdered by the Germans, just gunned down. And that's how tyrants and authoritarian, that's where you end up, So it wasn't only a matter of time. You do something like that, all of Italy goes, fuck this.
Well,
that's not the team I wanted to play on. And they finally it just reunited everybody against that cause.
No, Victor Emmanuel called Mussolini in eventually and stripped him of his power, and then the Germans came and saved him. He was up in the north in a conclave. It really wasn't a prison. They captured him and took him back, and then they put him back in power for a period of time. But by then, the resistance was great. I'm going to tell you, I think I mentioned it before. I'm reading them again because I love them so much. The series of books written by a guy named Giovanni Guarasci, actually Giovannino Guarasci, Little John. And they are about that era, post-World War II, where all of those things are trying to be reconciled. And that is the partisans and the communists and the church and all of these people that opposed Mussolini, then learning how, once he's gone, once the fascists are done, how do we then run our country together? How do we get along? They're really brilliantly written. They're funny as hell. And I look forward to the day when Americans are doing that. When Americans are going, okay, we're putting him beside, we're going to put him aside. We're putting Trumpism aside. We'll agree that we won't equate that with true Republican conservative politics. And we'll put Bill Clinton aside, That's not who the Democrats were totally either. And so the independent voices, you got your voice too. I look forward to the day when we're able to do that, where everything isn't simply a shit show every day, when somebody's towing a party line and saying, and we're trying to be truthful, and we're trying to be what the Constitution intended us to be, and that is a people that are working together. We've done it in the past. We can do it. My dream is that I live long enough to see that.
You will. History bears that out. It just, who's there? I believe you will. Me and Bill, maybe not, but he'll outdo us.
I mean,
here's an.
When I get here and you guys are already drinking heavily, what can I say?
Well, here's why I know. I know a guy that lived through it. He's a Bingham guy. His name's Paul Rumpus. He was born in Greece sometime mid-1930s, I guess, in the area of Tripoli. So he lived in Greece throughout the German occupation. He remembers Germans coming into his home and his village. He'd like to speak to us sometime. He wants to sit down and tell us some Bingham stories, which I think would be great.
I think that would be great.
But Paul saw that. He's been through fascism since the time he was 5 years old to 91 or 92, 90 years old, and he kind of knows that that's not a good path.
No.
He's lived it. I told, he's emblematic of it. Yeah, we get through it because Paul's a really, really good guy. One of the nicest men you'll ever meet. Just a fun, infectious laugh, and he loves life. So it's not all terminal. We get through this stuff. He's seen the worst.
Yep.
And he's there and so we will too. But it kind of ties a little bit to what Paul saw. He came to the land of milk and honey. His father had a brother, something like that, here in Bingham Canyon before. Of course, the war stopped the migration from that family to come any longer. But somewhere along the line, Paul's uncle was killed in the copper mine, in the drill and blast department. And so he had family here. Then somehow the family came after World War II. Family came to live in Bingham. Paul graduated from Bingham in 1953, thereabouts, played basketball, joined the military reserves here. Good guy. But he witnessed something else, and this is something you and I have witnessed, and that's the destruction of landmarks.
Yeah.
So where we came from, where you're from, there's nothing but air, Highland boy.
Right.
And lead mine, where I grew up, Copperfield, where my roots are, nothing but air in Copperfield. Lead mine is just done. It hasn't been buried yet, and it's not air, but it's gone. So every landmark I knew when I was little, post office, Bingham Merc, Copper King, City Hall, the jail, you name it, they're all gone. Right. And yours are too.
Yeah,
Civic Center, the high school.
Yeah.
Twice.
The Highland Boy Community House.
The Green Front.
The Green Front, my aunt's bar, Highland Boy Elementary School, our house, all of the houses up there, my grandma's, my Uncle Marco's, the Keesaw family, all of that is gone. They live in my memory.
Right. But that's where, when you have watched your town go from something vibrant to dust, and I've seen that my whole life. I've seen the town die from the time I was a child till today. I've watched in Salt Lake City the disrespect that our city and many of our city fathers have had for city landmarks in Salt Lake City. They're gone. You don't get them back. And so I'm profoundly aware when landmarks disappear. And we have one that just disappeared the past couple. I was in the East Room once. I went on a tour privately. Arranged through our congressman at the time, but years ago. So I don't have great memories of it. I don't have an emotional tie to it, but it's not just a building. And maybe or maybe not the guy had the authority to just do it. But Ron, when Kennecott tore our town down, they told you they were coming.
Yeah.
They offered you some compensation for your father's wood and nails.
Not much, because they owned the land. I mean, so they owned what was underneath.
I get it. That's why I said wood and nails.
But I do remember that. I remember going to that house after we lived in Sandy. I've got video of it. My dad had an 8mm camera. We got video and going up into that old house. And I love Bingham.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. We have an attachment there, and those are the attachments that really make a society. The emotional attachments, the care, the love, the honesty, and all those things we've talked about a million times. It's not the structure itself. You can rebuild. The Acropolis, which is one of my fondest places to ever visit, has, the beauty landmarks of it, the Acropolis and the Erechtherion and the Temple of Nike. They're still standing, but I think it was in the 1800s, maybe earlier, there was a large edifice placed near the entry that went meters high that didn't fit at all. That it was, constructed by, I guess, the Ottoman. I don't really know, the Turks, Ottomans, somebody put there. It was an aberration. But when Greece got it back and took their country, they just tore the sumbitch down. Well, so that's what people are saying. You can tear things down and build, but attachment-wise.
No, I think I've said this on this program before. I'm hesitant to when people say they want to tear down statues and stuff like that. I have a different view of it, and my view of it is, you have a Robert E. Lee statue, leave it up. Leave it up to see what a traitor really is, and then put next to it somebody that wasn't a traitor, and let people look at that. Let them understand it. Let them understand that a really good man, Lee was a good guy. I mean, for his time, he was. And he had done many good things as a soldier for America. He fought in the Mexican-American War, and a bad war, but he didn't start the war. And the thing about that is he goes, this is what happens, even for good people, smart people, when they don't think about what they're going to do, okay? And so we can put up next to his statue, traitor.
Well, then let's do it, because
I don't
think the statue should have ever been erected, and I don't think they should go back up now they've been down.
Well, maybe not, but what I'm saying is I think that there are other ways to do it, all right? But let me get to your greater point. That's just a side. The greater point is there are things in this country and other countries that are irreplaceable as landmarks, okay? And we can think of them. The Capitol that I live by, it's irreplaceable. They have done a hell of a job replicating it by building the House and the Senate buildings next to it, and the brand new building that is going to be the Natural History Museum. They've done a fantastic job of adding to that. They tore down a crappy building that they'd had to renovate a number of times. It had no real importance in Utah history. But if they decided, because they just felt that it was the thing to do, that they would knock down one wing of the Capitol and take out the Supreme Court chambers and the argument, the court itself, that majestic court I argued in so many times, I would probably be willing to go to jail to protest that, because it means so much in Utah history. All the great cases that were argued there, stuff like that.
Which underscores this East Wing stuff, because arguably it's not the most important piece of structure of any kind in Washington, D.C. I'm not defending what happened here, but, here's where I don't like it. Why were there so many lies and deception surrounding it? I mean, shit goes flying out the window one day and they go, oh, geez, we don't know what that is. They were probably doing deconstruction inside there at the time, taking stuff out. Or, hey, we're not going to tear the building down. We're just going to maybe bruise it a little bit and add on to it. Then it became something else and something else. This is not a hard thing to sell. Hey, we're going to improve this for the betterment of all of us, which would have been nice. It didn't happen. I mean, when they tore down Port of Call downtown,
that was
the Shubrick building.
Yeah, that was sad.
We used to office in there, And when the building went down, people came from all over the state and even Wyoming and buying like the doorknobs and the glass and this and that, and the ceiling, the stools, everything. Where was the estate sale at that? Or was there nothing worth saving in there? And if they did, why don't they tell us about that? It's all this like everything has to be clandestine. Everything has to be done under my fist, that guy's fist. And it's going to be big, beautiful, blah, 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 300 million paid by private donors, which only means that now we're beholden to somebody.
No, not we. He is.
He is. Okay, but that's right. You're right.
But the other part of it is this. We're not talking about even, and I agree with you. I mean, Salt Lake City's terrible about this. One day you driving down the city, there's an old house there that you loved. It's gone. There was near the liquor store on 4th South.
That little house?
There was a beautiful house. It cannot be built again today. You're telling me that they couldn't have built around that and used it part of the property, whatever they're going to do there. One day it was there. The next day it was gone. And no, I don't go there when I get my Social Security, and it was on that day that I saw it. And the next day that it was gone, I went to use my Social Security to get wine. But that's exactly how it was. It was there one day, it was gone the next. And those things are unreplicable. And I've never been I've been in the West Wing, never been in the East Wing, but I've been in the West Wing. I've seen that part of the, yeah, exactly. You just showed me a photograph of a great big building where what is left there. Is that in Greece?
That's in Greece. It's somewhere it's
where there's
it's in downtown central Greece.
And there's it looks like it could have been a church.
It's a Byzantine structure over 1,200 years old that they built around.
Yeah, we should post that if we can.
And the building went up over the top of it. People always marvel at it. And they still have services there. It holds like 4 people.
We don't do that here. But let's get to the crux of this. Donald Trump wants the White House to have his fingerprint on it forever. And that's what this is about. And there's only one fingerprint Donald Trump has. And what is it? It's gold. That's what he loves.
Yeah.
Every one of his golf courses, again, going back to Riley's book, that is one people that think, the people that go to these courses laugh about. There's got to be a big tower, a big fountain, and lots of gold. So we've got this big, beautiful ballroom. You know what? We don't need it. They don't need it there. And we all know that. And it's all
I think there's 1,800 acres at it's something like that of lawn.
It's all
huge.
Total
maybe that's
BS.
180 acres.
He didn't go through the process. There are statutes that prohibit him just to tear stuff down without a committee that is appointed overlooking it. But the big thing about it is it's not just the lies. We know they're coming if he's dealing with something. It is the idea that he and the people around him have no respect for American history. That's
the doom. That's what we've been saying.
This thing here and his post of him shitting all over America are the two symbolic, obvious things that show who Donald Trump really is. He doesn't care about American citizens. He doesn't care if the shit that was dropped was on his own people or Democrats or whatever, because he doesn't care about you. And to tear down a house that is important to Americans, and yes, some of it was not built in 17 whatever, it doesn't matter. This is not something that you just take a wrecking ball to because you decide to do it because you want it to look like you want everything to look. We don't do it that way here. And what's great is, I think, the only good thing to come out about this is that even his own people are going, no, I mean...
because it doesn't stop. Once you've done one, you do another. You have to have a bigger tower.
You've gone one step too far.
Well, that's what Joe Walsh was saying in his quote. There's never one step too far with these keep on voting for the asshole.
But there does come a time, just as we were talking about the original fascista, there does come a time when people say no.
Yeah.
And you know what? If they say no, we can't do anything about them supporting him in the past. There shouldn't be a pogrom or anything like that against him. But what it should be is acknowledge that you were wrong, and we all can make mistakes. Let's move forward together. I hope that these two symbolic actions of this guy, this bad guy, this guy who wants to build detention centers for people that don't even have trials and let them die in them because they're uninhabitable. This guy that wants to blow boats out of the water not knowing who is in those boats, whether or not they're really drug dealers or not. Even if they are drug dealers, we believe in due process. He wants to kill people. This guy who wants to condemn people who are trying to come to America because they're afraid. The homeless tempest tossed to me. He doesn't care about this. He cares about what he puts in his effing pocket and what he can put in the pocket of his friends and his rich buddies. And it's time people get wise to that.
Well, I didn't start off in my Trump disdain or politics thinking about so much about the oligarchy, but it's certainly becoming more and more clear these days, more than ever in my lifetime, how important it has always been to American policy to structure our ways around the rich who determine and pull the strings. So I don't think Donald Trump is the smart guy here. I think he's the useful tool. They're letting him do this stuff in the background. They're doing what they want to do. But the billionaires have look, huh?
It's part of it. They're letting him do it.
Well,
but
they're actively doing it. Like Mellon just gives $130 million, right, to help pay for the troops. Pays for 1/3 of one day of our U.S. military and becomes like this great big news. Like somehow billionaires are good guys because they can fund the government. You know what they can also do? Pay taxes.
They could. One of the problems that we have is, I'll go off on a tangent, just a small one. Brian Kelly got fired by LSU. The governor, the president of the university, the athletic director, all these rich guys got together, and they're rich guys, got together to decide, how are we going to pay that $56 million that we owe him? How are we going to get that paid so we can fire him? You know what those guys never do, John? Those guys never get together to say, hey, how can you could kick in $10 million and you kick in $10 million. Let's go take care of the Ninth Ward in New Orleans. Why don't they do that?
Because they don't. That's not what people with that kind of wealth do. Let me tell you, because you would think like, well, by that logic, why didn't the Mellon guy just give his $130 million to Snap, for instance? It's going to run out of money. Yeah. Well, $130 million pays for half a day of Snap's expenses, barely more than the military. So it doesn't go very far. But he wouldn't do Snap because that's antithetical. There's nothing in it for him to get out of Snap, having me and you feel like he's on our team. He's not on our team. He's on Trump team. The guy's in probably, theoretically, is in the Epstein files. He built his wealth. He didn't build the wealth. His grandfather, Andrew Mellon, created tax law when he was in the Treasury Secretary in the 1920s. It benefited his family to grow his wealth and protect through protections of how you pass it generationally so that his wealth was always maintained. What did this guy do? This guy just moved his money around to make more money. This is not society building.
No, it's self-fulfilling, and it's the joke. It's the joke about you too can be Mr. Mellon. You too can be Donald Trump. Yeah, you can if you're a crook. And frankly, that's where I'm back again. I'm back to when I was 19 years old, believing that if you were, at that time, a millionaire, then you had to be a crook to be a millionaire. And I don't think my thinking was all that wrong at that time. It was probably a little overstated. But the ideas that there is this kind of wealth in this country. We got babies starving in this country. We're going to be closing hospitals in this country in rural areas where kids and their mothers are going to die. And people are going to need treatment and they're not going to be able to get it. There's not going to be ambulance service in all of these rural areas. And these guys, and it is these guys, and the Kelly issue I think is relevant. They got $56 million that they can flip their fingers to get, and yet they're supporting a guy whose big, beautiful Gil took everything people off of Medicare.
How many people, approximately, what you learned, paid for Kelly's contract?
I don't know.
Some group of a number raised $56 million, right?
Yeah.
That's half the amount, a little bit less than half the amount that Tim Mellon gave and got great publicity over. By the way, he's a bit of a racist himself. He's alleged anyway. Said some pretty rotten things about slavery redo when it comes to social services, so that's why he would never give it to SNAP. But only 4 or 5 guys can give to preserve the football team, one team that plays 13 games a year, somewhere thereabouts. But that would have paid for one half of what our military for one day, a quarter of our military's budget for one day. Those just handful of guys in one pocket. I'm just saying, the money's there. You're right. There's more money in this country to take care of every one of our singular needs and leave all of the wealthy still incredibly freaking wealthy and still feed our least most vulnerable people.
One of the arguments that I reject is that, and I know you're not saying this, but I've heard similar things. Well, see, $56 million really isn't that much money. Really? Tell that to some.
I just said it was.
But I know. But tell that to the guy that is working 2 jobs and trying to get by. That $56 million
That's the
is
point
a lot of
of
money.
the SNAP benefits that'll be lost. 44 million people potentially lose their SNAP benefits in the next few weeks unless something happens.
But
hold on. 22 million of those already are working. These are not infirm. These are not lazy people. The other part of them are people who are like ourselves that can't work. But take the 22 million who are. Take those 22 million people who are paying $1 more an hour, $2 more an hour all year long. You don't even have that problem, and the money is still there. It's a minimalist way to take care of it. So why don't these people acquiesce to the real common denominator of their Christianity and everything else that they proclaim to be and actually help people instead of make these grandiose gestures once in a lifetime when they could always do it every day of the week just by being decent to their employees.
Or paying fair taxes.
Or paying fair taxes. Either one of those two, they are still going to be the 10 most wealthy people in the world, and America will be better off. What's the race here?
I don't get it. And again, we're about done here. But another story that broke, we got NBA players. One guy making $28 million, had a $28 million contract. He decided that he was going to cheat on prop bets. The estimate is that he couldn't have made more than $50,000 on that. But he was going to do that for a friend of his who needed money instead of playing a game it's intended to be played, or just write the check to his friend, okay? And so I don't understand that thinking. That is outside of my level of understanding, except as a defense attorney that I realize that people will go to the depths to do things that are stupid or evil because they think it's a good idea at the time. And America allows too much of this thought process that says, it's too expensive to feed people. It's too expensive to have people have health care. Well, you know what? Then if it's too expensive, all of you geniuses that know how to make money, find a way to make it work. And it also may mean that you get to make less money. But as you, John Saltas, just said, you're still going to be doing pretty goddamn good. Let other people do good too. And that goes to Donald Trump and his pals too. Let other people have a decent life. You can still have enough money to do everything you want. And if you have so much money that you can screw little kids, then you have too much effing money.
Well, I've been lucky. I've got friends on every spectrum, just the way unfortunately where I've lived, and fortunately where I've lived, and the things I've done. So I've got the poorest people in my phone. I've got some of the wealthier people in my phone that I can call good friends. Not all wealth is not evil. Money is not evil. That phrase. It's the pursuit of wealth.
And the manner in which it's used.
Right. So I know people with great sums of money who have the biggest hearts you've ever seen. And we may or may not agree politically, but these people do good in their communities and they do everything right. And we simply disagree politically. There are others that can't wait to take my last dime and yours and the children's food off their plate and say that they're somehow gaining something. They're not. And this is always going to be the crux for me. Who are we? A measure of dollar signs or a measure of integrity in children and healthy lives for our citizens? It's such bullshit.
Well, I would like to end today and say this. If you hold yourself out, as so many of these people do, and as the Republican Party and the Trump evangelicals do, as being good Christians, then you ought to take a look at it, okay? Because the fact of the matter is, and we're all responsible, including the guy talking right now, and I try to do my share, and the more I think about it, maybe I don't do a big enough share. We're responsible for those people that are sick and suffering right now. We're responsible by voicing our opinions, but you cannot call yourself a Christian unless you have a desire and an effort to help the poor. Because the guy that we follow, that was his big deal. You cannot achieve the kingdom of God unless you have a preferential treatment for the poor and the suffering. We don't do enough of that.
Who's the most evangelical of all the people that are in the Trump cabinet currently?
Oh, I don't know.
Isn't it Hegseth?
It may be.
I think he's a Christian nationalist. So is it a Christian tenet, because I'm not as studied as you are, to blow people up in the middle of the sea?
No, it isn't exactly that. I don't want to bring my particular faith into it. Pope Leo has been talking and pushing back on that a lot. No, you can't say that you're pro-life because you say that you're anti-abortion. If you don't, he said these very words. If you say you're pro-life but you're for the death penalty, if you say you're pro-life but you're against immigrants that are hungry and looking for a better life, and you're against them, you're not pro-life. If you're for war, you're not pro-life. And these folks that want to sell that, and that is the crowning achievement, that you're opposed to abortion and that's enough, you're wrong. I seldom tell other people they're wrong about their faith in Christianity. But if that's what you believe, I believe, and there's support that you're wrong.
Yeah. 14 deaths today or yesterday, people killed off the coast of Venezuela, 50-something total now. Nobody knows if they were in this because they had no due process, as you're told. But they're dead. They're killed. People want to kill them because of drugs, apparently, even though the drugs from Venezuela, if they do make it here, come through the Pacific side. And what's funny is like the distance between Venezuela and parts of Florida, 2,000 miles. You'd have as much chance of motoring a boat from Venezuela to Miami. I'd take the bet here. Put your power boat in Pineview Reservoir and head it east. You'll get to Chicago first, over land, before one of those boats make it from. They're not even distributing here. This is high seas, piracy, murder. You name it what you will, but it's not who we should be. Get the drugs off the street. Get the drugs out of the deal. But be honest, because that comes back to the East Wing again. That's not why we're shooting those guys out of the water down there.
It's propaganda that's stopping. Once again, I mean,
it's oil down there. It's land. It's Attila the Hun. It's Alexander the Great. It's Genghis Khan. It's all of that. Is that bad? Don't know, but at least be truthful about it.
I think we can end it on there. I mean, I despair when I think about this stuff. I really do. And I'm proud to have done it. It was my job and my vocation. And we can go back to all kinds of things, but the main thing is we're not stopping the drug trade by killing people in a small boat off the coast of Venezuela.
Propaganda.
That's a lie.
I didn't know what the word meant. Thank you for that. Now I know, and I appreciate that, Ron.
All right, you too, Johnny.
All right.
Peace and love, everybody.
Let's go tear a building down.